Chapter 5. The Flea and the Acrobat. Hopper breaks into Hawkins' lab, stealing an official's ID so he can get past security. Joyce confides in Lonnie about being able to hear and see Will, and tearfully says that she can't hear him anymore. Lonnie suggests to Joyce that it's all in her mind and that this is a coping mechanism, and he urges her to get help. F you, Lonnie. You don't know anything. Would I say the same thing? Maybe, but you go to hell. Then Lonnie patches up the chopped hole in the wall with a tarp. Hopper calls for Will inside Hawkins' lab. He sees evidence of children being there, a stuffed toy on a bed and a child's drawing on the wall. The drawing shows two stick figures labeled 11 and Papa. Hopper continues to search for Will despite the staff of Hawkins' lab now being alerted to his presence. Then he goes underground and finds the underground entrance to the alternate dimension. But before he can discover anything else, he gets captured. 11 and the boys are back at Mike's house trying to make sense out of what Will was saying over the radio. 11 says the words, upside down. This becomes the new nickname for the alternate reality, the other world that we can find through the portal. Mike quickly realizes that 11 has been trying to tell them that Will is on the other side in the alternate reality. That's why she flipped over the board game to show them where he was. Because when she used the board game, she flipped it over and she said right here. And that's why she brought them to Will's house. Because in the alternate reality, he is at his house. He's just not at the house in this world, if that makes sense. They look into the Dungeons & Dragons game book for a description of the Veil of Shadows, which is like description of the upside down, basically. It's a dark reflection of our world where monsters live. They ask 11 if she can get there, and she shakes her head no. Jonathan comes home to find both of his parents. He asks Joyce if the creatures she saw came back, but Lonnie shuts him down. Privately, Jonathan tells Lonnie to leave, but Lonnie says that Joyce is mentally unstable and he needs to stay. You didn't stay before, so why stay now? Anyways, Jonathan is now starting to believe Joyce, but Lonnie argues that Jonathan is just making it worse. Actually, Lonnie, you are. I hate Lonnie. This is a Lonnie hate account. Will's funeral is held at a cemetery. The boys see a girl crying at the funeral and whisper about how that will make Will feel. The coffin with the fake body is buried. Hopper wakes up back in his cabin. He runs outside with his gun, but finds he's alone. He then looks under all the surfaces and examines the light fixtures and electronics in his house, destroying many of his possessions in the process, and even looking inside his phone and his sofa. Finally, he discovers a bug planted in an overhead light. At Hawkins' lab, Dr. Brenner can be seen listening into the boys' conversation in Mr. Clark's radio room. Will's voice is heard calling to Joyce, and Dr. Brenner, realizes that Joyce knows something. After the funeral, Johnny and Nancy examine a map marking where the creature has been. They realize that it's not going very far and make plans to find the thing and kill it. Jonathan steals a gun from his dad's car, but says he won't tell Joyce until that thing is dead. At the funeral reception, the boys ask Mr. Clark about a parallel universe and how they could possibly get to an alternate dimension. Theoretically, of course. Mr. Clark uses a paper plate to describe an acrobat on a tightrope, Jesus, representing our dimension, which has rules. One can only move forward or backward. If there's a flea on the tightrope, however, it can move on top of the rope, like the acrobat, but also along the side or under the rope. He says that the only way for a human to get to the upside down would be to create massive amount of energy to make a I'm getting torn up. To make a tear in time and space, which would create a gate to the alternate dimension, he says as he stabs the plate with a pen to demonstrate. The boys realize that such a gate already exists, which is how Will got to the upside down. Lonnie fixes the hole in Joyce's wall by hammering boards across it. Joyce scolds him for taking down the Christmas lights, but he says that they were in the way. He mentions that he went to the quarry where Will supposedly died and there were no fences or warning signs. He says that the Sattler Company, which owns the quarry, should be held responsible. Joyce realizes that Lonnie just wants to sue the Sattler Company and accuses him of only coming back to his family because of the money. Lonnie accuses Joyce of being a bad mother, blaming her for Will's death and calling her a mess, alluding to the Christmas lights. Joyce says she'll keep them up as long as she thinks Will might still be alive. The two scream at each other and Joyce kicks Lonnie out of the house. Go, Joyce. Thank you, Joyce, Mother of the Year. The boys tell Eleven that Mr. Clark told them about a gate into an alternate dimension, and they ask her if she knows where it is, but she does not. Dustin is circling the room with a compass and asks to see all of their compasses. Dustin realizes that all the compasses are not facing true north, and explains that only a powerful magnetic force could make a compass point in a different direction. They realize that the gate to the Upside Down would disrupt an electromagnetic field. He hypothesizes that if they follow the compasses, they will find the gate. 11 is visibly upset by this. Nancy finds a bat and practices swinging it. Steve shows up and jokingly says he hopes that she wasn't planning to use it on him. He apologizes to her for being insensitive about Barb and asks if there's any news. Nancy says no and suggests that the two of them go see a movie, but Nancy declines, telling him that she'll call him later and kisses him on the cheek. Great, awesome. You hate bad. Meanwhile, Jonathan is practicing with a gun in the woods, trying to shoot cans but failing. Nancy shows up and Jonathan tells her about his father made him kill a rabbit when he was 9 years old, which was traumatizing for him. She takes her turn with the gun and shoots the can on her very first try. 11 of the boys are following the compasses down a railway track. Dustin suggests that 11 is acting odd. 11 has a flashback to being at Hawkins' lab. Dr. Brenner tells her that she'll go even further she has if they try something new. She's visibly afraid but agrees. 11 is lowered into a sensory deprivation tank. Back in the present, 11 tells Mike that they should turn back. She says that she's tired, but Mike says they're probably almost there. Jonathan and Nancy search the woods. Jonathan armed with a baseball bat and Nancy carrying a gun. They have a fight over her involvement with Steve. Hopper shows up at Joyce's house with a sign warning her not to speak. He comes in to search the house for bugs and sees all the Christmas lights and realizes that it could be in any single one of them. So he takes all of them out one by one. Later, after he's examined every single one, he determines that Joyce is probably okay and there's probably no bugs. He tells her that he went to the morgue and that the body is fake. He acknowledges that Joyce has been right the whole time. Dustin realizes that they've gone in a circle and that they're no closer to finding the gate. Lucas accuses 11 of using her powers to screw with the compasses and lead them away from the gate. This is confirmed when they see she's had a recent nosebleed. Lucas accuses her of not wanting to help them find Will, and 11, unable to accurately phrase what she's feeling, simply tells them that it's not safe. Mike and Lucas fight over 11. Mike says she's trying to help them, and Lucas accuses her of using them to get food and shelter, and maybe she's the reason Will is lost in the Upside Down. The boys fight physically, and 11 causes Lucas to be torn away from Mike, hurting him in the process. Mike and Dustin run to Lucas, who is unconscious. Mike yells at 11, asking what's wrong with her. A lot. Back in 11's flashback to the sensory deprivation tank, we see her in a black void listening to a man speak in Russian. Brenner and the others are able to hear him on the PA system. 11 hears a growl and the man disappears. 11 runs away in the void, and then we see her screaming in terror in the tank. Lucas wakes up, angry but unhurt. He storms away, and Mike and Dustin realize that 11 is gone as well. Jonathan and Nancy are still in the woods at night, annoyed at each other. Nancy hears a whimpering sound and they discover a severely wounded deer. Nancy realizes that she needs to shoot the deer to put it out of its misery, and Jonathan says that he'll do it. Clearly uncomfortable, he aims a gun at the deer, but before he can shoot, the deer is dragged away suddenly by an unseen force. They follow a trail of blood with their weapons ready. Nancy discovers a hollow entrance at the base of a tree, dripping with blood. She calls for Jonathan, who does not respond, and then decides, hey, you know what, I'm gonna crawl in here. Genius of the year. Smartest move ever. Let me crawl into the bloody tree hole. Nancy crawls to the other side where there are webs and vines everywhere and little flecks in the air, indicating that she's passed into the Upside Down. She sees the creature devouring the deer and backs away, accidentally stepping on a vine which cracks, disturbing the creature. Its face opens into 5-toothed petal-like shapes, revealing a mouth full of teeth. Nancy screams and runs back to the portal in the tree. Yeah, I'm not going to redo that sentence. Jonathan hears her but doesn't know where she is. He finds her back at the base of the tree and calls for her. As he searches, bark grows over the hollow end of the tree, closing the portal to the upside down with Nancy trapped inside.
Dear Lord, I am so tired, but that was the end of episode 5. Okay, now come back for episode 6. Okay, sweetheart, thank you.